Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Immigrant Success Canada's podcast, your coaching program for a successful and happy life in Canada. I'm the co founder and co host, Emmanuel Petrescu, alongside with my partner, Charlie.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlie back.
And today we have uh, Richard Fleming as a guest. Again, Richard, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on another episode with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Charlie, do you want to lead this interview since I've been the one leading the last one?
Okay, Emmanuel, thank you for your offer. I will ask several questions to Rich. Rich and I have known each other for a long time while he was living in Sault Ste. Marie, and both of us love playing tennis. So that's why we are connected. And I'm really happy to see him again because he left for Calgary. So he is now in Calgary, and so I'm really happy to see you face in person now, even though it is virtually.
Good to see you too, Charlie. And I miss the tennis.
Yeah, me too. So today's topic is about how beautiful Canada is. So the beauty of Canada. So this is very fun and exciting part. So I like to hear some exciting stories from Rich, and we can share together some of stories. So let me start the first question, which is, in your view, what are some of the beauty of Canada? You were born and lived here for a long time. So could you tell us some of the things you like about Canada to new people in Canada?
Well, I think Canada is a little difficult in the sense that it is so big. So it takes a long time to travel from one place to another. But at the same time, by being so big, there's a lot in it. And there's a huge number of very beautiful places in Canada. If we start from the west in Vancouver, is a very big city. It's growing a lot. I lived there, and I did my some of my schooling was out at UBC at the University of British Columbia, and British Columbia in Vancouver, it has mountains, snow-capped mountains, and you could go up there and go skiing or hiking and so on. And at the same time, you could look out and you could see the ocean down below. So spectacular views from in in Vancouver. And then you can get up into some of the ski areas at Whistler and so on, and getting into the mountains. And as you start to travel eastward, there's more mountains and things, and there's a lot of beautiful places to do hiking and skiing. And there's a lot of wildlife around too. So Canada, you're often like even for us here in Calgary, we drive up into the mountains every now and then, and we run into mountain sheep or things like this, and elk and so on. So there's a lot of wildlife that's around. So it brings the environment and nature very close to you. Um, and then as you go further west in Calgary, Calgary has um, or at least the mountains that are just to the west of Calgary, they tend to get very dry snow. So when the weather comes across the Pacific, it tends to come from west to east. It goes over the mountains, and by going over the mountains, there's a lot of snowfall, and in the summer, a lot of rain that comes out of the air, and so that the air is pretty dry by the time it gets to the eastern side of the Rockies and into Calgary. So Calgary has a fairly dry sort of feel about it. But if you get up into the mountains and go skiing near Calgary, the snow is very light because it doesn't have all the heavy moisture that you would find on the west side, as in Whistler and so on. And then as you travel further to the east, You get into Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and to my mind, those are flatter, especially in Manitoba in parts, and they're I don't find them as interesting. But on the other hand, there's a lot of immigrants who sort of feel like, at least in my opinion, that they like the flatness because it reminds them of home and where they came from. And so you have these sort of visions of a big sky where you can sort of see from horizon to horizon and a lot of stars at night and so on, especially if you're out in the country a bit. Um, and then as you go further east, you get into Ontario and then into Quebec, and they're fairly forested provinces, um, with a lot of forest, I would say. Uh, and you get into sort of a different kind of ecology. So you have different kinds of bears and different kinds of. You don't have elk anymore, but you'd have white-tailed deer a lot, and so on. And as you go, and Quebec is it's a French province where French is the I think the provincial language, but I think English is also recognized. I'm not sure on that. And it seems to change politically with whoever is in power. But Canada has always been accepting of its French heritage. Um, it has varied over the years, and Sault Ste. Marie is no ideal city for that because we had a mayor that at one time was trying to ban French, which uh,
Really? Wow.
was not a good idea. But this sort of left a bit of a black mark on Sault Ste. Marie in particular.
And
But
even the name sounds French, right? Sault
I
Ste.
know
Marie.
it was a yes, it was founded by a French explorer, so it
Yeah,
made no
right.
sense whatsoever. But still, that was it happened. Um, so anyway, and then as you get into Quebec, I've always liked going to Quebec because it's very different, and again, I like this sort of multicultural idea, and so it's a place where people immigrated to Canada probably before a lot of the British people and my ancestors, and they were dominant in Quebec, and there were battles and some history, and at any rate, the British ended up, I guess, basically having adding all of Canada to part of their empire. Um, But Quebec has always been quite individual and very proud of their French heritage, and so it's an interesting place to go to. And there's a lot of immigrants that prefer to go to Quebec because they're from French-speaking countries. So there's that opportunity as well. And then as you go further east, you get into the maritime provinces, which are all smaller, but historically are probably the oldest provinces in Canada. And I have a brother that works in Newfoundland, which was actually one of them. Perhaps I think it's probably the most recent province to join Canada. It was something like 1949 or 1950, I think. And they had a choice. They could have joined the U.S. The U.S. was also welcoming them, but they decided to
Oh,
join
yeah.
Canada.
Wow.
So that was a whole province that came, and we're quite happy that they did. Although I do have a T-shirt that has the Newfoundland Liberation Army on it, but at any rate, that's not really an army, and I don't think it's there's much of a push for that anymore.
Oh, by the way, Rich, in terms of Newfoundland, I heard from one of my friends, actually, one of our advisors. Her name is Elena. She told me that Newfoundland has very strong accent. So,
Yes, yeah, they're very strong, and it's a lot of it is derivative from the Irish. So they also have a fantastic sense of humor. So whenever I go out for meetings and so on, nobody ever wants to miss the after dinner speech because it's all usually so much fun to sit there and enjoy it. And so a lot of the great comedians in Canada are, in fact, from Newfoundland. Rick,
Really?
Rick Mercer is the one that comes to mind right off the bat, but there are others as well. Um, so so anyhow, I think and the East Coast has its own beauty and so on in different areas, and it's much older and it's a very sort of seafaring part of the country.
You painted such a beautiful picture of Canada that I wish there were more provinces so we can talk
Yeah.
about.
Well, actually, I've just gone east to west. I haven't gone south to north. So you get up, and I don't know the north very well. And I'm like a lot of Canadians. We live a little bit north of the American border, but I've never been up to Great Slave Lake. I've never been up to into Nunavut or the Northern Territory and so on.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That means how big Canada is, right? And
Oh,
actually,
that's right. Yeah,
your
yeah. I
story
had
reminds.
two brothers that they did a canoe trip in the Nahanni River, which I think is in the Northwest Territories, which is north of all the provinces, and they just thought it was a terrific trip.
Wow. Actually, your story reminds me that when my daughter Laura decided to go university, actually she was accepted to U of T and the McGill University in Quebec. So my wife and I encouraged her to choose U of T in Ontario, right? But she chose McGill in Montreal in Quebec, right? So kind of wow. So I think that's how big an choice is, right? So
Yeah,
usually children wants to be away from their parents,
that's right. Yeah, if you two had chosen Quebec or McGill, she probably would have gone to U of T.
right? That's why you chose UBC, right? From your
Well,
parents.
UBC, yeah. Well, it certainly got me a long way away from Ontario, and I'd always heard it was a beautiful part of the country.
Hmm, that's fantastic. So you talked about natural beauty and the geographical diversity. Now let's talk about what kind of outdoor activities we can enjoy. And so, do you have any advice or what you enjoy doing outdoors?
Well, for me, I think it's important, especially if you want to meet new people, to be involved in things. And so you could be involved in an art gallery, you could be involved in, I guess, some sort of business group. But for me personally, I like to be involved in sports. So I would play when I went to England on that sabbatical that I mentioned in the other podcast. I joined a squash club right away, and squash had always been a sport that I had enjoyed playing. And so I joined a squash club and got to know a whole different group of people through that. So it sort of gives you a group of people that you work with because you know them through work. And then there's another group that you also have that are kind of friends on a sporting basis. And so here in Calgary, and I know in Toronto, um, I see a lot of people, say from East India and so on, playing cricket. And I know that's a big game in India, um, but it's there. And I used to play a little bit of cricket in Sault Ste. Marie, just go out with a group of guys that I knew that they knew cricket. I didn't really know it. But it was fun to play, and you get involved with a different group. So in cricket, you get English and East Indians, and quite a few Caribbean countries play cricket. Um, there's South Africans, uh, Australians, and New Zealanders. So we'd have a pretty wide group of people that would play cricket. And I see that happening in a park close to me here in Calgary. People playing cricket. Rugby is another sport which is quite international, and there's a lot of people that play that. Um, English, Argentina, France, South Africa. Australia, New Zealand. I guess a lot of the same countries that play cricket. So they seem like two very different types of sports. Um, but they all of those are sort of English-based sports, and they have the idea. Well, and tennis would be another one where you go out and you play hard against your opponent, but at the end of the day, you sit down and might have a beer or a drink or something with him. So it's not as though you hate him forever. Rather, you sort of respect him, and you make friends that way. It's I think has a better attitude than well, I would say hockey in Canada is a big sport, and there's a few immigrants that are playing that. But I think hockey still has that North American attitude of you stick with your team, and your team's all the good guys, and their team is all the bad guys.
Only when they win.
Yeah,
I've
right.
read this. Whenever people refer to our team won, whenever they lose, they say they lost.
They
So it's an expression. And I can tell you for sure because I'm involved many children of immigrants immigrants that came to Canada but have their children born here are adopting hockey very young,
okay.
and it's a very competitive sport. And I
Yeah.
appreciate. I wasn't a fan, but I started to appreciate it more since coming to Canada.
Well, another one was soccer has really taken off, and I think both the Canadian men's team and the Canadian women's team, especially the men's team, has a lot of immigrants on the team.
Football.
Yeah, yeah, football for you immigrants. Yeah, for us, football you have to have a helmet on, and it's another one of those sports where you don't talk to the other guys on the other team unless you went to college with them.
American football.
That's right. Yeah,
I'm
American
European,
soccer.
so I want to make that correction every now and then.
So there's American football, and we in fact have our own Canadian football, which is very very close to American football, but basically has slightly different rules.
Oh, and you know that basketball was invented in Canada first, right?
Yeah, yeah, but we're not particularly good or interested in it as much as. But I guess a lot of immigrants are quite interested, and I think there's a fellow who's known as a. So the only team in Canada in basketball at the top level is the Toronto Raptors, and they have a fellow who seems to want to be their number one cheerleader, and he's from India, I think, and you see him on a lot of the broadcasts. So he's found a way to get involved.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, in terms of playing tennis, actually, Rich and I participated in tennis tournament in Sudbury in 2019, and we won in our division as a doubles player. And then so that tournament was actually the best tournament I have enjoyed the most. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. And on that note, actually, Rich, I bought new tennis racket.
Oh, you did?
Yes, so that racket is Yonex, and you know that our number one men's tennis player, Denis Shapovalov, he
Oh, yeah.
uses Yonex
Oh,
V4.
okay. Well, I hope you'll be playing like him.
So I'll show you the record. This is the
Oh,
record I bought. Okay?
oh, good for you.
Yes. So I think that's great, Rich, and because as you said, I met you because of tennis and another friend, Brad. He's our advisor, and I met him, Brad, because I went to tennis court. So by doing those activities, you can make good friends. I think that's a great way.
Yeah, yeah, you can get involved, and I think especially in sport, you're sort of working together as a team, even though you have no work in common. Um, but as a sport, you're playing as a team, so you're working together.
Absolutely. So now I'd like to move on our last question. So which is about how newcomers can participate in some community activities or volunteering activities. So I know that in Canada we have a lot of opportunities. So outside of work, what kind of activities we can do?
Well, I think in volunteering, that should be very easy to get involved in if you want to, because I would think that only an idiot is going to say, no, you can't volunteer. If you're offering your time and you're going to help, then why not include people? And so I think there's a lot of volunteer organizations. They probably don't have a huge advertising budget, but if you went to a church or went to sort of government and just looked for, is it NGOs and things like that, that you might get an idea. But things like in Sault Ste. Marie, there's always sort of volunteer organizations that want to clean things up, so picking up garbage and things like that. There's other organizations that would want to, they might want to help with a bigger organization. So, for instance, in North America, there's a bird count, and people can go out. Often it's early in the morning or something, but you have to listen for particular bird calls. But again, that is a way to get out and enjoy the environment and the nature and so on. So that's really very useful. I think there's probably um, in a way what um, trying to help people in general. So there would be religious organizations would have opportunities to volunteer and get involved. Um, uh, and I think probably a lot of the time, even in sports, there's opportunities to volunteer because if you're going to run a tournament, you need people to organize it. And and usually people are asked to organize it, giving their time for free. And often there's enough people that are quite happy to do that. So that would be another one. The art gallery is often looking for volunteers and in different roles and things. The library, I would think, I would think there would be a lot of organizations that might welcome volunteers. What you might have to be careful about is unions. That if there's a union that's involved, they may not want to have volunteers because you are cutting their wages. So um, that's all I want.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. For me, in terms of volunteering, I used to work as board member and treasurer for my daughter's figure skating club. So especially when they raise fundraising activities, and also I'm an accountant, so I volunteer to the committee to discipline accountants and providing some mentoring and those things. So there are many opportunities if you look for, and you can find out. So I think uh, also when you retire, I'm close to retirement. So I'm thinking about what kind of more volunteering, right? So we live long, so that kind of thing. So you can think about all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think volunteering also is a way to get known. So it's sort of a way to sometimes immigrants come here and they have qualifications from their own country, but those qualifications are not accepted here. So they might be required to go back to school to get the job that they originally had in their home country. But at the same time, they might get known as being a good person, and sort of the character often makes an important thing. So you can get people to know who you are, what you can do, that you're reliable and dependable, and all that sort of thing through volunteer work that you might not have a chance to do or to show people because you don't even have a chance to get into the job. But it might mean that once you get the qualifications, you would have a job just waiting for you because someone that knows you from your volunteer efforts would say, well, I know this is going to be a good person. And as soon as they have the qualifications and they can deal with the public on that, then by all means, you're welcome to a full job with us.
Networking.
Yes, right. Yeah.
I know that, Emmanuel, you are volunteering for Toastmasters, right? Can you briefly talk about your volunteering for Toastmasters?
Sure, both Charlie and I are Toastmasters. Toastmaster is an international organization that's all over the world, and you join to improve your public speaking, leadership skills, and so on. That's happened at the club level, but there's also a lot of opportunities in leadership because, as any other organization, it has a very defined structure and it's volunteer based operated. So you need people in basically any kind of position, leadership position. Because I work in digital marketing, I'm a marketer. I volunteered to take up some leadership position. I help with building some websites, with promoting some conferences, to promoting some events. Then I took the position of the webmaster for the district, and right now I'm the public relations manager for District 60, which is basically the admin part, the administrative part. Many people that join Toastmasters don't know all the admin stuff, which they shouldn't at the end of the day. But that's the region that covers the clubs that are in the Toronto area. And I'm the public relations manager, which means that I help with promoting internal inside the organization, but also outside of the organization. I can tell you my testimony actually has a name in the Toastmaster space. It's Toastamonial. It's been an amazing journey for me, also as a newcomer. I like to think that I knew English before coming here and I had all the skills. But when you come, new environment, new people, you often get intimidated. So it helped me, gave me the confidence to be who I am and to present the way I present and so forth, because it has some proven methods and structure that can help not just newcomers, anyone, but especially newcomers whose English is not the first language, to give them that confidence that they need when they go for a job interview. And even I joined mostly because I have a client facing position and I need to present reports, not every now and then, monthly, and to many clients who pay me money to get some good results. And obviously, I need to be at the top of my game. So something like that definitely helped me. Accepting also a leadership position helped me in a different way because I have some responsibilities as a PRM. I also present monthly reports to the district executive committee, which is consists of 30 something people. I don't know the exact number at the moment, but these things, it's better to be in a safe environment than to be in front of at job, and you might get too intimidated, or different scenarios. Volunteering for organizations such as this can help you build that confidence faster, sooner rather than later. So as well as signing up for a program such as ours, isc-go.com, the a coaching program that helps newcomer um project a successful and happy life in Canada for the next 20 years, or as I like to say, 120 years. Uh, I recommend also joining Toastmasters and many other clubs and organizations that Rich mentioned.
Great, thank you very much. So, uh, in summary, and I like to closing up our session. So, Rich, once again, I really appreciate it. And finally, okay, do you have any other comments? And in the beginning, I did not give you a chance to introduce yourself. So, could you introduce yourself very briefly, and then if you have any closing comments, and then you can provide them to us.
Okay, I'm Richard Fleming. I worked as a research scientist with the Canadian Forest Service, the federal government in Canada, and I'm retired now and living in Calgary. So, and I did most of my work in Sault Ste. Marie. Um, I have lived in Peterborough, Ontario, for about 3 or 4 years. I was born and brought up in Toronto, and I lived in Vancouver for 6 years. Um, so I've lived in different parts of Canada and seen a fair bit of it. Um, and as far as immigrants coming, one other thing I would mention is it's probably good to try to get involved with learning English or French as quickly as you can, and don't be afraid to get out. And if you have to, just point and get involved and at a store or something that you want something, and um, learn the language through activities and through getting involved. Um, and English is a second language. I think there's a lot of effort to teach that in Canada right now. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Okay. All right. I think that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you.
Fantastic. I really appreciate your time, Rich, and then I learned a lot, and then I really appreciate your kindness, and then so you like to provide your insight to us.
Well,
So,
it helps.
so this is the end of our episode. So now I turn it over to Emmanuel for our closing comments.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you so much, Rich, for being a guest again. And I hope why not do this within for another episode sometime later on. Thank you everyone for following us and for being subscribed to our podcast. You can do so here on YouTube or on all of the other platforms. The best way to reach us is to go to our website, which is isc-go.com, and it's coming along right now on the screen. So isc-go.com. There you'll find the recording and the transcript of these episodes as well as the previous episodes we did. You'll find more information about our program, and you'll find contact forms and a way to reach us to get more information of how our program can help you have a successful and happy life in Canada for the next 20 to 25 years and beyond that. Thank you so much, everyone. See you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.